Good evening. This is Ubuntu channel, and tonight on Meet Your Leaders, we are actually hosting Father Frank BWALYA, who is going to assist us in actually answering the question as to whether Zambia can develop or not. And to actually do this program, I am your host, and my name is CHAZA, together with my co-host, Lance Sani Banda. Lance, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening, CHAZA. Good evening to our guests as well as good evening to the viewers that are watching us. Glad to be back on a Wednesday like this one and looking forward to having a positive chat right here on Ubuntu channels, Meet Your Leaders.
Beautiful. Father Frank BWALYA actually happens to be the former High Commissioner to Australia and New Zealand. Father Frank BWALYA, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening. Thank you very much for hosting me. Good evening, everyone that is following the program. I must make it clear that I'm not the one who has insisted to be addressed as Father Frank BWALYA. I've made it clear that I'm Mr. Frank BWALYA. I'm not even Ambassador Frank BWALYA because I vacated that position. And as far as I'm concerned, the title ambassador was not conferred upon me. Therefore, I don't carry it anymore. But that said, I must also underscore the fact that the Zambians, we are obsessed with titles. So I would appreciate if I'm addressed as Frank BWALYA. Mr. Frank BWALYA is fine, Comrade Frank BWALYA, and so on. But thank you very much for this opportunity, and I want to say hi to everyone that is following the program. We are all becoming media literate, because before I would be saying, good evening, everyone, not knowing that people in Australia, it's not evening. People in America and in India and many other places are not on the same time zone as ourselves. So we are becoming media literate, and I must say, congratulations goes to all of you who have this kind of platform for us. For your information, some of the people that I sent the promo for this program were asking me the frequency. They were expecting something like 89, 98.1 FM and so on. So we are all learning.
Oh, yes, indeed. And we are not seeing your picture. We don't know if it is intentionally or not. Mr. Frank BWALYA, are you getting me?
Yes, I'm getting you. I had to switch it off and on again. Am I back?
Unfortunately not. Maybe the camera is covered.
No.
Okay, so probably we can move on like that. Maybe it's a thing to do with connectivity in terms of the video.
Yeah,
all right, so maybe we... Okay, so probably if it's connectivity, it will come on as we go. All right, as earlier indicated, we are looking at, the question tonight as to whether Zambia can develop or not. And first of all, just a glimpse on what development is. Development is, the process that creates growth, progress, positive change, or the addition of physical, economic, environment, social, or demographic components. Simply put, an event constituting a new stage in the changing situation. And development is actually comprising of so many things: economic, social, and so on and so forth. We are looking at education, employment, the cost of living, and so on and so forth. So the question is, according to you, Frank BWALYA, what are the indicators that we can look at that can help us ascertain whether a country would develop, in this case, Zambia or not?
When we look at indicators, whether a country can develop, that is one question. Looking at indicators that the country is developing or has developed, I want to believe is another question. Because the first one, we are presuming that the development has not happened, but there are indicators that it will happen. Whereas the other question, we're talking about development having happened, and now we are looking at indicators to confirm that development has happened. And maybe before I answer that question, or we discuss, it's supposed to be a discussion, not a question and answer session, so to speak. Maybe before we go in that direction, discussing development, allow me to say, as far as I'm concerned, the question is not whether Zambia can develop. Because when you go to villages and you ask people in one village, are you developed? They may say, no, we are not developed, or we have not seen development, as many would put it, because we don't have a school. The only school near here is 15 kilometers. You go to the next community, they would say, we are not developed, because since the pipe that brings water to this side of our city or our town, our village, and so on, broke a few months ago, and we don't have water. The next community may say we don't have development because we don't have a clinic in this area. Meaning, therefore, that development can mean many things to different communities. At the end of the day, we can agree that Zambia has been developing. We can agree that Zambia has been developing. If we look at those variables you mentioned, including progress, growth in material gains on the part of the people in terms of infrastructure, education, and so on, it would not be correct to say that Zambia has not been developing. Therefore, it elevates the question to not whether we have been developing, but to at what rate we have been developing, and in what manner has the country been developing. So now, coming back to your question, I'm sure we'll go back to this discussion. I'm just trying to lay on the table. Going back to the question, what are the indicators that Zambia can develop further? First and foremost, I would say that Zambians hunger for development. Every Zambian wants to live a better life. And a better life should be delivered by development. It's growth. So every Zambian, I'm convinced, wants to live a better life. Every Zambian wants their children to go to better schools. Every Zambian wants to drive on a good road. But all these things I'm mentioning are physical in nature, and development is beyond that. The people also should develop what we call human development. It's part of the whole concept of development. The people themselves should develop. In fact, in the first place, there should be a mindset. How are people looking at how they govern themselves? The systems that they have put in place, are they assisting to move the country to record growth and so on? Therefore, it's not just about economic development, which can be seen through indicators like how many kilometers of tarred road you have in the country and so on. So that's the first thing as an indicator. The second indicator is that we are endowed with a lot of natural resources. And these natural resources indicate, if I can put it that way, indicate the potential to develop. However, the mere fact that a country is endowed with the wealth of natural resources may not necessarily allow them to exploit these resources to a point where they can record development. They have to be utilized. But as far as I'm concerned, that is one indicator, because in the absence of those, it's difficult to develop. I'm not saying it is impossible, I'm saying it's difficult to develop, because some of the countries in the world that have recorded high growth rates, that have developed and so on, may not have the kind of natural resources that we have in this country, including sunshine, rich soils. From one corner of Zambia to the next, you may start with maize here. By the time you go to the end of that direction, you have pineapples that can grow there. You have Irish potatoes, you have soya beans, and so on. These are resources in abundance that we have. We have water, a lot of water. As I think we may have about 40% of water in our sub-region, and we have not had adverse weather such as we see in other countries. All these things point to the potential for Zambia to develop. When we look at the political system that we have put in place, yes, we can be very negative about what has been going on, and people know how our people, for instance, have been let down by our political system, not necessarily by individual politicians, but by our political system, and so on. However, it is very clear that as Zambia, we have made a lot of progress to ensure that we clean up our electoral system, that those who lose power hand over, smoothly and so on. All these, as far as I'm concerned, point to the potential for Zambia to reach higher heights. And I'm sure the people who are following this program would be in a position to add many such potentials that Zambia has. Sorry, I was trying to remove something that came on the screen. So yes, the potential is there, and we can put a finger on many of those things. Talking about the resources, minerals, and so on, but we'll get, I'm sure, during this discussion into issues of whether we have prudently exploited these resources.
All right, thank you so much, and I'm delighted that you have dissected the topic at hand, and you've given us, an in-depth. So I'd like us to hear from you on the different developmental levels. At which trajectory are we in terms of national development, development on a personal level and also community level? Because development, like you indicated, we are looking at, the cost of living today. We are looking at infrastructure, policies that the government is putting in place and so on and so forth. According to where we are, on which trajectory are we, even in terms of the rate and the manner that you have actually indicated, in terms of development? Where are we?
They say in Bemba, and I'm sure other languages have a similar saying, that umwana shenda atasha nina ukunayo bwali, meaning that a person who is not exposed or has not traveled, put simply, may not appreciate that beyond that small area he or she knows lie things that are more than what you are seeing. So a child may think my mother is the best cook, my country has the best facilities in this and that area. But when you travel, you realize sometimes how advanced you are, but other times how you've lagged behind. So in our case, I want to believe that when you go to developed countries, it could be the USA, it could be to a city like London, Singapore, you go to a country like China, and so on. You console yourself that We are not very far behind, but you will also convince yourself that we have a lot to do as a country, especially regarding the gap between the rich and the poor. And this is one of the major issues that many countries are wrestling with today. It's not about whether you are recording development, but whether that development is bringing certain level of justice in your population in order to see whether you are lifting the majority of the people out of poverty. It is clear that in many countries, Zambia included, the gap between the rich and the poor has been widening. When you look at what we have in Lusaka, the shopping malls, although they are not a realistic measure of development and economic growth, but allow me to use that because it's part of infrastructure. The infrastructure that we see in Lusaka, the roads, shopping malls, including companies, the companies that have come up. And then you go to Mpika, you go to Kasama, Mpulungu, Siavonga, Choma, and so on. You are not seeing that. You are not seeing that. Access to electricity, for instance, is very minimal in this country. Very, very minimal. We can Google what percentage of Zambians have access to electricity. Meaning, therefore, that the majority of our people, not only in rural areas, but even urban areas, don't have access to electricity because it's very expensive. Connection fee itself is very expensive. So where are we? Where are we? Where are we? We are still far in terms of our country convincing ourselves as having moved to a level where majority of our people are living a better life. You touched on the cost of living. We still, majority of us as Zambians, live on under $1 per day. That still points to poverty. So the poverty levels are still high, very, very, very high. The number of children who are going to school, despite having free education, is less. Our population also is growing at a rate where the resources that we have to go around are not enough. All these things point to a situation where more has to be done in terms of sustainable development. And that said, allow me to bring in the point of one of the major values of the Socialist Party, and that is equity. And you can't talk about equity without talking about justice. So how has this development we are talking about happened? And how should it happen even going in future? There should be equity. And here we are talking about a government coming up with policies to ensure that there is equitable distribution of national resources. That's what a government is supposed to be there for. In the absence of that, Zambia can boast, any other country can boast of development and so on, when in fact what they are talking about is that a few of our people, can go to the moon, as part of tourism, space tourism, but the majority of the people down here still are using pit latrines. That is not development. That is not development. And as a country, we can convince ourselves that we are somewhere there and a lot has to be done.
Presently, we have seen the intention of the government, in trying to see that development, speeds up. Like you are saying, equitable distribution of natural resources. We have seen that it has been said that development, like in terms of even awarding of contracts, major contracts, should be actually, be given to the natives of a given place. Do you think we are in the right direction, or the current government is in the right direction in the attainment of equitable distribution of resources? How are we moving right now?
A lot has to be done. I want to believe that as a country, we are not doing well to protect vulnerable people. We are not doing well to protect small businesses. And we need to remind ourselves that even the big economies of this world, they've got some policies to protect those in their industries that they think would not survive, would not effectively compete with external competition from investors and so on. So talking about lifting people out of poverty, in fact, we should be talking about people lifting themselves out of poverty upon government creating the enabling environment for them to do so. There again, we have a lot that we need to do. In this country, an investor would come with very little money to build a shopping mall, for instance, use the money that workers contribute in terms of NAPSA contributions, borrow that money, having come with very little money, perhaps no money at all, put up this shopping mall and so on, and you call that person an investor. In this country, a person can come to set up a company, maybe block making and so on, something that Zambians can do. I was discussing the other day with somebody, looking at a certain foreigner, and I'm not using that in a negative sense, but that is a foreigner, the person I have in mind that we're discussing, who came to this country just to make pies, sell chickens, and so on, fried chicken, of course. I'm not talking about KFC, just a different company. And that foreigner worked so hard that this time on the copper belt, they own a lot of property. They have expanded their business. It's something very big, employing quite a sizable number of Zambians and so on. And we were discussing, why are Zambians not moving like this? Why are Zambians that we knew were making ifitumbua, pombana, samosas and so on, why are they not progressing? Why are they not progressing? Does it mean that Zambians don't know how to do business? Talking about Zamtel, if I escalate it to something bigger, talking about Zamtel making losses, why? Why are we failing as a country to make Zamtel viable? We have universities in this country. We have people who have done business management. We have engineers and so on. Are we short of the brains to come together and find a solution, a business plan to grow that company, which is a public company, and employ our people? Of course, the numbers that can be sustained by this company, because it has to be profitable, and not just asking them to employ many people because we think that that's what it means to create jobs. No. The bottom line, why are we failing as a country, as Zambians, to run that company effectively? Why? All these questions point to something that is fundamentally wrong in our system, and those things have to be addressed. In other countries, you go into that country, you can even have a lot of money to start some kind of business, and you learn that you can't do that business owning the company 100%, perhaps 80%, and so on. You have to partner with a local person, That is helping the people. That is helping your people to come out of that poverty. That can be part of a strategy for equitable distribution of national wealth that we are talking about. You may remember that a few years ago, it may have been at the end of the MMD government, perhaps at the beginning of the PF, I can't remember exactly, when there was this talk about the need to preserve certain businesses, certain sectors for our people, we are not doing enough in that area. Talk about making blocks, for instance. Apart from cement, the major raw material that is used is locally produced. Locally produced. We may not have block making machines made here, maybe imported from China, from Germany, or wherever, and that should not go on for 20 years. That's how the Chinese have developed. Buy that block making machine. Why can't UNZA replicate something like that? And our people can buy, sometimes made using appropriate technology. It may not be the best, but it is quantity that later leads to quality. That our people can buy those cheaper block making machines, machines made here, or some components made in Zambia, and that Zambians can run that business. As long as we Zambians look at foreigners, so-called investors, to be employed, this poverty will never end. It will continue to be perpetuated. And here, as you said before the program, saying that we don't have to politic on this program, I do agree with you that when we talk about development, and that is our agenda as the Socialist Party, when we talk about development, we have to be above board and ensure that we are not just politicking, because we are talking about people's lives. We are talking about people's livelihood. This is not about UPND. This is not about SP. It's not about any other party. It's about our people. And very soon, I realize even myself, when I look at some of the women that I was with in school, this woman has got grandchildren and so on. Then I realized that natukula. So we may not even be here or not in the same manner that we are 20 years from now. You, the young people, will have to take up these positions to move the country forward and so on. So we can't afford to be partisan about issues of development. It's about our people. It is time that Zambians will work together, come up with a development program that can deliver. Not this thing of going round and round and round, no.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Frank BWALYA. This time around, I'll throw it to my colleague to actually ask one or two questions before we invite the public to also join in on the show to actually either contribute or ask questions. Lance, would you please come through?
Thank you so much, CHAZA. And let me address Mr. BWALYA as Comrade Frank BWALYA. At least for now, I will desist from ambassador, because I heard from his introduction that those are not his views. But so, in addressing his views, Comrade Frank BWALYA, we really appreciate that you are a part of this program. Now, in tackling the topic at hand, let's first get to define what a developed nation is. So, by definition, a developed nation is a country with high industrial and economic development. So, you will find that different countries are categorized by relative terms: developed, developing, as well as underdeveloped, based on multiple criteria. But generally speaking, the categories are based obviously on the economy and standard of living in the country. So a developed country or a developed nation has a strong economy. All right, we can't run away from that, as well as also a technological infrastructure, and its citizens have a high quality of life overall. This is a developed nation. Then if you get to move on, developing countries have a less developed economy and lower quality of life for the general population than developed countries do. And also at the opposite end of the spectrum from developed countries are underdeveloped nations. that have the lowest relative quality of life and economy. Mr. BWALYA or Comrade BWALYA, let's get to look at Zambia in these three different spheres or positions that we have given. Is Zambia a developed country, underdeveloped country, or a developing country? And then apart from that, after answering that question, is Zambia or can Zambia develop and move to a level called developed country?
Well, first and foremost, we need to underscore what we have all agreed with, that economic development on its own may not suffice to categorize a country as developed. Economic growth on its own. Because there's always, and you rightly say, there's always the component of the quality of life of the people. It means, therefore, that it is possible for a strong economy not to deliver those essential services. Because delivery of those essential services that the people depend on to a greater extent has to be managed by policies that a country has put in place, mindful of the need for every citizen to live a decent life. So if you have a strong economy that is a product of capitalist policies, you may have a few people controlling the wealth of the country. They are filthy rich. And another group of people, the majority in your country, that are living a life of a slave. And they are barely surviving. That's what capitalism can deliver. Socialism brings in now that humane approach to development or economic development, to link economic development and the quality of life of the people. So I do agree that a good life on the part of the people is supposed to be delivered by a strong economy, But it is also possible for a strong economy not to deliver. In our case, the question is, are we developed? Are we underdeveloped? We are underdeveloped in the sense, that the majority of our people are poor. But we can console ourselves that we are a developing country, meaning that some effort is being done to lift the people out of poverty. That still begs the question, at what rate? The rate has been very slow. And if we try to use the growth rate that we've been recording, maybe in the last 30 or 20 years, it doesn't give us a good picture. Although that may not be, per se, the measure of lifting people out of poverty. I'm sure statistics are available. Are Zambians today living a better life as compared to Zambians at independence? Are Zambians today generally living a better life compared to Zambians of 40, 30 years ago? That is a highly contentious question. Some people definitely will say that Zambians 20 years ago lived a better life because they had land to cultivate. There isn't any more land. Today, if you need to look for a piece of land where you can grow some maize, so at you have to rent. You have to rent. There are plots everywhere and so on. So there are all these issues. But one thing I can say is that we are an underdeveloped country. Majority of our people are living below the poverty datum line. Majority of our people, many of our people are still using pit latrine. They don't have running water. They don't have electricity. Even the quality of their housing, and not just in rural areas, Because as a matter of fact, some of the people in rural areas may be living a better life because of the agriculture that could be happening in that area, but in urban areas as well. Can we be proud as a developing country? Well, I'm not too sure, because the rate at which we are developing in terms of lifting the people out of poverty is nothing to write home about. So we are underdeveloped. And that is not like, saying something that is not good about ourselves. That's who we are. More has to be done. Policies have to be put in place. Talk about the the mines that we have in this country. Many people of our age remember very well that you taught the difference between a mining town and a municipal or non-mining town by the kind of facilities that were available in a mining town. If you went to Karulushi, you found a stadium, you found clean markets, you found street lights, you found along the roads nice trees that would flower during certain seasons, good roads, other social welfare activities, women going to the welfare centers to learn to read and write, to knit, to cook, and so on. That is not there anymore. And yet the price of copper is higher than before. So there's a missed opportunity here. There's a very big missed opportunity.
Okay, Comrade BWALYA, thank you so much. But let's get moving, as I would also love to engage our viewers on different social media platforms. So we have quite a number of questions or commitment coming through from Facebook as well as YouTube, and also we are employing those that haven't yet sent in their questions, their comment, or their concern pertaining our topic of discussion this evening. Please, we are discussing the topic to say, can Zambia develop on Meet Your Leaders? You can leave a comment through our broadcast that we're having right here on Facebook, YouTube, as well as Twitter. And do not forget that our guest this evening is Comrade Frank BWALYA, right here as we get to discuss that topic. So, Mr. BWALYA, before, I think only 3 minutes before we get to engage our viewers that are watching us, let's get to at least address simple issues to do with the principles of growth in terms of democracy. So I would like to highlight at least 7, if not 10, principles or growth of an economy or pertaining to our topic of discussion. Can Zambia really develop? So development, first of all, number 1 is continuous. So whatever that we start with in developing Zambia must continue. Even if we change a government or we change a political party in government, at least that development which the previous government started, if it's in the good cause of the people, should continue. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but let me get to list all of them, and then we'll be coming to them one by one. We are talking about from 1964, when we got our independence and started ruling one another as Zambians, until right now, 2022, over 50 years of development or of democracy. So the second tenet that we're looking at is that development is gradual. How gradual is our development? Number 3, development is sequential, as well as number 4, the rate of development varies from person to person. Obviously, this is political party to political party. I don't know how simple I can put that. And then the 5th one is development proceeds from generic to specific. Number 6, most traits are correlated in development. And then number 7, growth and development is a product of both heredity as well as environmental. Number 8 is that development is predictable. Number 9, we're talking about general development. Then the last one, there is a constant interaction between all factors of development. Now, Comrade BWALYA, we have almost 10 or whichever number of what we have mentioned right here. At least pick a number that you will be able to attend to in 5 minutes before we get to introduce our listeners and viewers that are taking part in this deliberation.
All those principles that have been laid down are important. People may want to join one or two, or indeed add one, but all of them are important. When we talk about from generic, for instance, to specific, yes, when you come up with a development program, you have a goal that may be global, and you deliver. You want people to have access, for instance, to running water. First and foremost, you need to have plants that will, process the water, purify it, make it good, lay the infrastructure in order to, pump this water around. At the end of the day, you need to come all the way down now to the people themselves. Are they getting this water? Are the people going to afford this water? And then you have splinter issues or factors out of that. How is the community being sensitized to look after this infrastructure that a private entity or indeed government may have put in place? So all those are very, very important. Talking about continuity, which may be closer to our hearts now, because even going forward, we need to understand that Zambia will change governments often as we go on. And the reason is because Zambians want development. And more Zambians today are voting because they want to see certain things, to see a certain change in their life. This is why the song Banati Gonga, Bawufi, and so on seems to be very popular among the people. Because when the people went to vote last year, they were expecting to see a certain change. And that change was told, that change was offered. One change that they were expecting, for instance, is that the price of fuel will go down. That's a change in itself. And that change may sound like an isolated kind of change, but it's a change that can have a lot of ripple effects. When the price of fuel goes down, the woman who makes fritters, and sells at the corner is impacted directly by that reduction, because she has to get on a bus. She needs to buy some cooking oil. She needs to buy flour and so on. And the price of fuel does affect the prices of these commodities. So I'm very, very convinced that when it comes to issues of continuity, Zambians are aware about the need for continuity. This is why they are saying the New Dawn government have employed teachers, but somebody built the schools. That's continuity. That's continuity. Somebody builds the schools, another person employs the teachers, another government, when I say person, actually I mean the president with his government, another government says, well, we need more schools, but also we need to do more on housing for teachers. We need to put in place maybe policies for these teachers to build houses in rural areas, in areas where we may not have enough housing units. And when you are on transfer or you've retired or you get a different job, you can put that house on rent and generate an income, reducing domestic poverty. So continuity is very, very important. And here, Zambians, again, using the example of the surplus of electricity that we have, Zambians were very quick to say, well, this thing started before the UPND came. That's about issues of continuity. The UPND did not abandon that program. Perhaps it was too late to abandon it in the first place. But I would say the PF didn't abandon that program because it was conceived by the MMD. I stand to be corrected, but having been board chairperson for ZESCO, my thinking, the knowledge I have is that that project was conceived by the MMD. When the PF came, they didn't abandon it. Why? Because they appreciated the development goal to have more Zambians have access to electricity, and appreciating that project and the impact it was going to have even on the overall economy, continued with that project. I know some people may have seen one or two things that maybe were done in a wrong way and so on. Yeah, these things can be there, but for the purposes of this program, as you said, let's focus on the program itself as if everything went well. That program came to fruition. The UPND government has launched the program. Yes, they're justified to take credit for launching it because it's an effort to launch, and they can be given the marks that are allocated to launching. Then the others who built it can also be given the marks and the appreciation that fits or befits. Is something that is very, very important, and if Zambian people who are the voters do not put pressure on politicians to ensure that they carry on the good programs of the previous government when there's a change of government, then we may be going forward and then going back many steps. 2 steps forward, 4 steps backwards. God forbid.
Comrade BWALYA, thank you so much for your deliberation as well as your explanation on the topic of discussion. Now, the studio is open for everyone to come in or to come through and be part of our program. Remember, as Ubuntu channel, we strive to make sure that not only the presenters, but even you as an ardent follower and listener of this program gets to meet your preferred leader. And this evening, we want you to meet your leader, Frank BWALYA, or Comrade Frank BWALYA, as he prefers to be called. Get to meet him, come through right into the studio. We have shared with you the studio link. Come into the studio, let's get to discuss the topic of discussion which we are discussing this evening. Now, Frank BWALYA is the National Mobilization Committee member for the Socialist Party, and our topic of discussion this evening is, can Zambia really develop? Come through the comments that we have, comments on the comments box, as well as come through into the studio. We have shared the studio link. We want you to be a part of this program. We will appreciate you coming through. Honorable Mwaba, thank you so much for coming through. I understand that we have lost you. We would really encourage you to come back. Please come back through and add your voice to good governance, as we are striving to make sure that we get this program as interactive as possible. For now, we have Nati Sengu in the studio. Nati Sengu, good evening, good afternoon, good morning. What time is it in Canada? How you doing?
Machisengo, are you there?
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed, we can hear you. Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you, and good evening, everybody. Comrade BWALYA, it's great to finally meet you. I've heard so much about you for so long, but it's great to see you and meet you finally. My name is Nyachi Sengu. I'm going to talk about a few things here that you talked about. The importance of business continuity. I like that. Yes, you know, MMD might have started something and PF might have done something. UPND is here now to finally complete the projects. You talked about the deployment of teachers and healthcare workers. That is the tick in a box. And Zambia, which used to have a lot of power outages, now they're enjoying electricity, which is fantastic. All those things are great things to see. And listening to the topic for today, Lance, you're talking about Zambia being able to develop. Can Zambia actually develop? Yes, Zambia can develop. And I think Comrade BWALYA did talk about Zambia being a better place to live, or better place a long time ago. When we look at, he did also talk about the mines. When you went to Chingola or Mufulira or something like that, you would know that you're in a mining community because of the things that they had at their disposal. That those are some of the things. When we look at corporate social responsibility, I think that comes with all that. But when we also go back to those years, Zambians owned the mines. We owned the CCM. Now we hardly own most of these mines. They're owned by investors. They are going to sell their products and be able to take away their money. They're only going to do so much in a country that doesn't belong to them. I think that's where Zambia can clamp down and say, okay, like when we look at the South African mines or investors, people that have come to invest in their country, there's been policies and procedures that have been put in place. And I think Comrade BWALYA did talk about that. It's important for a country to have those policies and ensure that their investors understand them. If they don't, that's how you continue being poor. And I think with Hakainde Hichilema's and Nalmango administration, I see a lot of light at the end of the tunnel. As long as we continue to go on to live on the same,
Nachisengu, are you there? It appears we have lost Nachisengu there. Do you have a reaction, Frank BWALYA, to that?
Yes, just a few points. I think that the reason why communities are not seeing the benefits from the mines today is because we don't have patriotic leadership in place to ensure that we collect what is due to us, what is due to our people in terms of taxes. We don't need to want to own the mines as a country. What we need to ensure is that we have a policy, a good policy, to collect the taxes, and that those taxes can be used not just to develop Usakile, to develop Karulushi, but to develop the country as a whole. And I do believe that even at the time that we had those incentives, that development seen in mining areas, we didn't 100% own the mines. We didn't 100% own the mines. We could have had higher stakes here and there and so on. But the situation was very similar to what we have at the moment. In short, what I'm trying to say is that corporate social responsibility should not be what delivers those things we saw those years. You know that it's very cosmetic what corporate social responsibility can deliver. A few t-shirts here and there, some clean water there, some mattresses in the hospital. That's what these companies do. It's the taxes. Get the taxes and use those monies to develop the country. Then when we talk about
Mr. BWALYA, just hold your thought, so that we may make use of Honorable Teddy Mwawa also, who earlier joined us, and probably due to connectivity or so we had lost him. Let him come through, then you'll actually get to react to that later on. Honorable, good evening and welcome to the program. Your mic is on mute. Kindly.
Yes, good evening, and viewers, good evening.
Good evening.
We are delighted.
Yes, the discussion at hand is so wonderful, and it is also shaping our direction as a nation. Because, the biggest challenge we have in Zambia today, Zambia depends much on mining, And when you talk about 45 or 30 years ago, the young people who turned out in large numbers to go and vote out the PF government, their parents 30 years ago were great people to reckon with. And today they were cheated that they will be provided with jobs, which is a lie. You know, the trouble the MMD government brought on the mining sector was to privatize everything, leaving Zambians to have ownership of their minerals. You know, Zambia has produced a lot of mining metallurgists today who are working in Botswana, in Canada, and in America. Why didn't the MMD government encourage the management buyouts so that we can have those mining giants, the professionals, continue managing? Because they were the ones who were mining. And I totally remember when the Zambia ZCCM was managing the mines. When we were selling copper, the dollar was being kept in Zambia. And whenever they needed a dollar from the ZAMTRUP account, they could recall the dollar through Bank of Zambia, meaning Zambia was producing copper at that level and managing the dollar. Exchange rates were good. And today what is there is these mining companies, the so-called investors, they externalize the dollar, which is costing all of us. And what is happening today, if we don't get tangible taxes from these mines, Zambians will never develop. Look at ZCCM during that mining tenure there. We had classic hospitals, we had classic schools, we had everything it takes. Mining, we are running agriculture. They were in water protection, water recreations. And no one thought one could go to South Africa to go and spend time outside, not even Lusaka. We were not thinking of coming to Lusaka because ZCCM was catering for everyone. And the best thing government can do now is to reverse the mining systems and allow the local professionals to continue running and provide jobs, not depending to be brainwashed, to begin thinking that only private investors, foreign investors can develop Zambia. It is our role and our responsibility to manage our business wealthy and to manage our resources, because these gentlemen who are coming, they are siphoning for sure. And I don't regret over this. They are siphoning our wealthy, and we are left in the corner to say, we are dunderheads. We have nothing to do. Only the professionals from outside can manage our resources. Look here. If this government can deliberate it last week. Hello?
Honorable Mwamba, before I allow Comrade Frank BWALYA to respond to you, can I ask you a question?
You can.
All right. So what you're talking about is really very important and that many Zambians have to look up to. But have you noticed that currently the Zambian kwacha is appreciating against the dollar, despite Zambia not owning any of the mines, and despite Zambians deliberating or debating on an issue of Zambians owning these mines, Bindata, and all these issues that are in court? Have you noticed that? What would be your advice?
There is nothing to celebrate about the appreciation of a dollar. I totally remember in June and July last year, the dollar was trading between 14 kwacha and 15 kwacha. So that is a deliberate move to blackmail us that the dollar is appreciating when it's not benefiting, bearing any impact on at household level. Look here, if the dollar is appreciating, why is fuel not still coming down? Last time when a dollar was increased to 22 kwacha, every person was anxious to do what? To increase every price, even at the grocery level. People were attributing the increase to the escalating dollar. So we can't say the dollar is appreciating and things are going there. They are suffocating the economy. Look at those who are in import and export. They are not doing any business because the cosmetic lower inflation is not bearing results. It's like they have suffocated the economy with less money, less kwacha on the market. People cannot buy. People cannot go out to buy. Meaning, if money is not in circulation, yes, inflation to them can peak, but at the household level, it is not bearing any tangible result. That is mockery we are giving out. Economics, I can call it, is somehow a fake and a useless profession which does not represent the local people at the lower level.
All right. So
Okay, thank you so much, Honorable.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Before you come in, Chaza, maybe a direct question to Honorable Mwaba before we let you go, because we believe in engaging each and everybody that comes through on the program, and then we let our guests to respond to that. So before you go, in the current state, at the level that we are moving, do you think that Zambia can develop? Honorable Mwaba.
You are breaking. I can't hear you.
Okay.
Are you getting me? Are you getting me, Honorable?
Yes, I'm getting you. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I may rephrase his question. He's saying, at the rate we are moving right now, can you say that Zambia can develop?
Yes, Zambia can develop if the leadership is totally concerned. But if there is no leadership will, at the level we are moving, then we are wasting our efforts. And then, development requires to be floated to every person. Everyone becomes a participant. Look here in the level where people who were running a small-scale institution like companies. Look at those traders, the Airtel money traders. The monies they were releasing, they were trading around, was supporting the economy at various levels. Now look at how many numbers have been cut off from that, who were beneficiary out of that. Employment was directly given to those people. Now, when we say we need to develop, in that area we cannot say we are going to develop, and it requires critical thinking, critical leadership, and political will to make sure that every Zambian is given the cake they deserve, not where everything, when people take over government, this has been a trend, government changes, they abandon what the previous government were doing, pretending that they were criminals, politicizing every person, and vuzelas are always there just supporting without analyzing. In this case, we need every person to get on board, not just on one side. If Comrade Frank Ward and yourself have brilliant ideas, let's come together. And the essence of preaching just entrepreneurial skills, entrepreneurial empowerment amongst the youth, which is not working, then we are killing ourselves. Let's come together. And the brain drain that can help Zambia tick quickly as it is now, the civil servants. If government can take a deliberate policy today to empower the civil servants with agricultural loans, every person has a place where they come from. Where they come from, thousands of civil servants, if given the jobs, we can do and create a lot of jobs in agriculture also.
Honorable Mwaba, thank you so much for being part of the program. Can I make a requisition to you, Mr. Mwaba?
You can.
Please, on the private chat, drop your WhatsApp number, and then we'll be able to get in touch with you. We appreciate your contribution.
Thank you for hosting me. So thank you and good evening, Comrade BWALYA.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. So, Comrade BWALYA, before we have you respond to Mr. Mwaba's sentiments, at least let's get to read a few comments that have come in, or a few messages that have come in from different people that are watching this particular broadcast. And then as you respond to that, we'll also be winding up the program. So Mwida Mulenga says, comrades, or Comrade Frank BWALYA, keep up the good work you are doing for the party. This is coming through from our YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Then Joseph Mulenga right here on our Facebook page is saying, Mr. Frank BWALYA, good talking. I'm asking to you, sir, you can tell me how many jobs does UPND has created education in the education sector. I believe that's what he meant. Maybe let me read that again in correction. So he says, Mr. Frank BWALYA, good talking. I'm asking to you, sir, can you tell me how many jobs has UPND rather created in the education sector, and also has been there for many years in the health sector as well? Please tell me what they can boast about that they have filled, or they have found rather, what they promised the good people of Zambia. All right, thank you so much, Mr. Malenga Ish. Your message was very hard to decipher. Let's get to go through to the other message, Director. Teddy Mwaba says, watching from Mandevu, Lusaka. Oh, please, let's go back to that. So I'm sure he meant to say all these mindset of depending foreign aid cause capitalistic behaviors. Okay, can't decipher the real message from there. Let's get through to the next message coming through. Director, let's go to the next one. Director, okay, thank you. Bethany Renda says, today our people are starving because they can't afford to have 2 meals a day. Bethany Renda, thank you so much for your contribution. Let's get through to the other one. Let's get to read as many comments as we can, so that even as we allow our guests to respond, it will also be a form of bye-bye, because I know we are beyond our time. Director, let's get through to, let's say, next 3 messages. So this is the first one out of the 3. Chris Mwamba says, capitalism is failing us today. I also cried seeing thousands of youth lining up for temporary jobs of becoming an emulator or supervisor. Obviously, this is in relation to the census job. Now, that confirmed to me capitalism has no muscle to create jobs for our people. Thank you so much, Chris. Let's go to the next message. Let's read the next 2 messages, and then we allow our guests to respond. Director. All right, so Bethany Renda says, Comrade Frank BWALYA, do you think it is the right thing for UPND to give tax break to international corporations' mines? All right, thank you so much, Betha. The last message for tonight on this program. Director, let's have it through, and then we have our guest to respond to that. Last message, Director, can we have that last message, please? All right, anyway, we seem not to have the last message. However, Comrade Frank BWALYA, respond to the questions that have come through, and then after your response, we are only giving you 1 minute 30 seconds to at least say your bye-byes or our bye-byes, but please be rest assured that we'll still call back on you, because we still have a lot to discuss right here. Please respond to the 3 questions or the many questions that have come through.
I will respond not in the sense of answering, but in the sense of adding my views, or indeed emphasizing or concurring with the views that have been shared. All the views are on point, except for one question. Is it in order for the UPND to give tax breaks? Put simply, is it in order for the UPND to allow the mines not to pay tax? Not to pay tax, the same taxes that we require to pay the teachers that they have employed, that they are going to employ, to pay nurses, to put medicines in.
Comrade Frank, since you only respond to that question, let's get to see if we can accommodate Joseph if he's asking a question. Or
yeah, but I've got other comments as well that are not responding to a question, but just adding my views to some of the issues that have come up.
Okay, so please.
But go ahead with Comrade Joseph.
Definitely, we will increase your time of response. Let's get to accommodate Joseph. Joseph, good evening. How are you doing today?
Good evening, thank you, the host, and good evening, Comrade Frank.
Good
It's
evening,
pleasure
Jimmy.
speaking to you, comrade. It's pleasure speaking to you, comrades, and good evening to all the viewers. First, I must say that this is a very intriguing subject that we are on tonight. I think it's quite informative, and I'm sure our viewers have learned quite a lot. Now, getting to the subject under discussion, firstly, Comrade Frank has labored to explain the issues of development. Interesting to note that since our friends, the UPND, took over power, which was favored by the people of Zambia in August 2021, the people of Zambia were quite expectant. You see, they came on the premise, of course, of wanting to change and fix the fortunes of our economy. The people of Zambia were quite expectant, but to the surprise, and this has been a very, very serious shock, because barely 3 months into office, they saw the need to give the tax holiday to the mining entities, which are actually the backbone of the Zambian economy. This was actually unfortunate. And speaking of development, it will be very difficult if should the UPND decide to go on with this tax holiday for the next 5 years, the national development that we envisage will not actually be actualized. Because in order for them to provide the much needed free education, which by the way is a good thing, but that in itself requires sufficient funding, and which funding is what the UPND have decided not to collect from the mines. It is rather shocking also to imagine on how the country would forego in excess of $3 billion and start pursuing the loan bailout from the IMF and the World Bank of only a 1.4 billion. This is actually a shock, and it's no one should actually be an economist for you to be able to understand that in order for us to be able to develop our country, we actually have to revive the fortunes that we have in the mining sector. And in order for us to be able to get it, I would want to echo what Comrade BWALYA said. We do not need to own the mines, but rather we need to correct the appropriate taxes, which we can later on be able to channel into the sector that so much require these things. So that's a comment that I would want to submit tonight. And only that, of course, we have spent much of our time, and I joined in quite late. I would have loved to add my voices to this very, very interesting topic that we're discussing tonight. For now, I thank you and good night.
Thank you so much, Mr. BWALYA there. Is it BWALYA or Chivangu? It has gone too quickly. Chivanga, yeah? Okay, yeah, it reminds me of, Joe Chivangu. So I think I had a lot, going on my mind when I was seeing his name. We do actually appreciate there. So, Mr. BWALYA, you can come through to react to his comment and other comments that came through. And I'll actually give you 5 minutes to make the reaction and also to make your conclusion.
Honorable Mwaba talked about Zambians running the mines so that we can get maximum benefits from them. My comrade Chivanga Joseph has talked about the need for Zambia to collect the taxes that we're supposed to collect, losing in excess of $3 billion US, when what we are pursuing to get from the IMF is only $1.4 billion US. Those two can be, combined. And simply put, all Zambians are saying, and the voice is getting louder, is that even before we get to our people running the mines, even before we get to the issues of getting a loan from IMF, why are we not collecting the money that is already there? Why are we not collecting the money that is already there? Allow me to use this example. If you hire somebody to sell mukasido. You hire a boy or a girl to sell mukasido kobe. And then everyone who is coming is paying. On person ko bubblegum we eat, on person ko lollipop, everyone is paying. Then it could be a girl that is selling in that casino. Then this guy comes so well dressed, and you see the girl saying to this guy, no, don't pay. Yeah, mungatenge chape. What are we going to conclude? Let's put it the other way around. It's a man who is selling mukasido, and this girl comes and says, on paseniko sugar ibiri, and he produces those packets of sugar, and he says, don't pay. What are you going to conclude? Two things. That this person who sells in your casino is going to pay himself or herself, or that is going to steal from you to pay for that person in order to cover the short. That's what you are going to conclude. Zambians have already concluded what is going on here. Why is this government refusing to collect the tax when they know that they need it, that the Zambian people need it? Very soon, Zambians will even speak louder in terms of demanding answers. Now, this brings me to the issue of how a capitalist, let alone a puppet one, behaves. Look at the example of Kafironda Explosives. That was a company that employed many people in Mufurila and on the Copper Belt, of course. So if you talked about employment in Mufurila on the Copper Belt, you added that company. What did they do? They came up with some technology, and in the name of technology, they started producing certain components for explosives in South Africa and others in Zambia. And eventually, the explosives started coming to Zambia by road. Those were the trucks you were seeing with chains at the back, and the chains would be making some noise and so on. The explosives started coming into Zambia by road. And then the components are assembled there to supply to the mines. This country should never have allowed that, because it killed the jobs in Zambia. But that's how a capitalist behaves. They sit in the boardroom and they agree. The explosives are being made by Kafironda. How much money are they making? So much money. If we removed this company and threw the people on the streets, how much money are we going to make? We're going to make so much money. Can you get some scientists to come up with a new technology and claim that it will be cheaper, this and that, and so on? But what did they do? They damaged our roads because the explosives were coming by road. What did they do? They threw our people on the streets and there were no more jobs. This is but just one example. There are many examples. That's how capitalists behave. That's how they operate. That's how they killed Score Limited in Kitwe. You know, Score Limited in Kitwe used to make those ball mills that are used to mill copper. Those things now started coming from another country. And our people who used to work for Score, and there will be hundreds of them working for that company, were thrown on the streets. How do you expect to grow an economy? How do you expect to lift people out of poverty when you have such kind of reckless policies? It's not possible. Somebody asked, how many jobs has the UPND created? Well, I would rephrase that question. How many jobs have they announced? We know it's in the public domain. 11,000 plus for teachers, 30,000 plus for teachers, and then health workers and so on. We know that they made that announcement, but it will not be correct. And Zambians are agreeable on this. Can claim that they created these jobs. There's no formula there to creating those jobs. It's part of an effort long started. Yes, the pledge was made to employ these people. But if UPND built schools because they want to offer free education and to have as many people as possible to go to school, they built the schools and followed it up with recruiting the teachers. Maybe they can take more credit than they should take on this one. Now, what worries me is that we have a government that is in a hurry to take credit where it is not due. That is a form of dishonesty. And we cannot
Okay,
afford to have leaders.
Mr. BWALYA, I'll now give you 1 minute to make your conclusion because we are beyond time.
My conclusion is this, that when it comes to development, we can't politic. When it comes to development, we can't use euphemism. We have to be forthright in talking about it. Zambia needs radical leadership in order to change the direction of this country. Let the country develop, and not develop just economically with resources, the bulk of the resources concentrated in a few, but equitably, to move our people out of poverty, to have equitable distribution of the good things of this country. And finally, Zambia needs selfless leaders, patriotic leaders, such as Dr. Comrade Fred Membe. And his message is very clear about that. And we have many Zambians, not only Dr. Fred Membe, we have many Zambians who have sacrificed for this country, who are sacrificing for this country. I'm not saying there's none of such kind of leadership in the UPND. That would be a lie. But we're saying to the president, you are not being patriotic by not collecting the taxes from the mines. You are not being patriotic. You need to collect those taxes. If it were Michael Chilufya-Sata, when Dr. Fred Membe forms government, these two characters, they would not allow such a situation where you allow the mines to go away. That guy selling Mukantemba, no, we repeat. What is going on? We need that money. Zambians, let's start a drive to put pressure on this government to collect that money. That is our money. And if we don't collect it, we should as well forget about development. Above all, what else is happening in this manner? For this one, they couldn't hide, because in the budget, we needed to see where, we needed to see a line on the taxes coming from the mines, so they couldn't hide it. But what else is this government hiding, which they're supposed to collect and they're not collecting? So we need to put pressure on them as the people of this country so that they can collect the taxes from the mines, improve the lives of our people using that money, and maybe build more schools and employ more teachers, build more hospitals, and employ more health workers.
All right, Mr. Frank BWALYA, or Comrade BWALYA, as you may like, we are so grateful, we are so delighted, and we are so humbled to actually have you on the program. Do not close your door. We still have many more topics that we'd like to tackle as we get to host you. Lance, you've been so good as always, not forgetting our participants, our viewers and listeners. This has been Meet Your Leaders on Ubuntu channel. My name is CHAZA. For now, we're saying till next time, God bless you all. We do appreciate your listenership and your viewership.